Hello there, and welcome to another exciting episode of Strictly Business Unscripted. I'm your host, Keandra Jones, here to provide the ultimate networking hub and exclusive peek into the lives of thriving entrepreneurs, community leaders, and business owners. First, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Home Care Network, Breakfast Brothers, ServPro, and the Dallas Zoo. We appreciate your support. Now, let's give a warm welcome to our very special guest and friend, Rebecca Lopez. She is the senior crime and justice reporter at WFAA here in Dallas. She joined that station April of 1998. Now, she's covered the Dallas Police Department since 2003. Over the years, she has broken some of the biggest stories at the Dallas Police Department, including the day at DPD headquarters when they came under attack by suspect James Boulware. Rebecca has also covered multiple national stories, including the Oklahoma City bombing, the siege at the Branch Davidian compound in Waco, the Space Shuttle Columbia disaster, and most recently the ambush of the 5 officers in downtown Dallas. Okay, Rebecca, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
So we've been friends now for a little bit, and there's some things that I've learned to just absolutely love and enjoy about being around you. But for those that are watching, and we know that we've got a lot of folks watching because Rebecca Lopez is here today.
Well, thank you.
Who are you, Rebecca? Now, this is Strictly Business Unscripted. You don't know what I'm going to ask you.
Right, I don't know.
Just yet. I may not know all that I'm going to ask you just
Absolutely.
yet. So what we want to know first is, who are you without journalism?
Who am I without journalism? Well, I'm a mom, a very proud mom of my son, Jacob. I was a single mom. I mean, my ex-husband was in his life, obviously, so we raised him together, and I think we did an outstanding job. He is now owns his own company straight out of college, is working with celebrities like Chance the Rapper. And so to me, that's probably my biggest accomplishment is Jacob. I'm also a wife. I have a wonderful husband, Stephen Oliphant. We got married 2 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you're
we got
still a
married. Yes,
newlywed.
September is going to be 2 years. And so we enjoy traveling. I just got back from Greece, and that's really my thing. I love to travel, and I'm an avid reader. I started a book club recently
Did you
at
really?
WFAA because I thought, you know what, we need to read more. So we've been picking some really great books, and so that's what I kind of do on my time off.
You know, as a friend, one of the things I admire so many things about you. I just love your little personality, your bubbly personality, your presence. But one of the things that I love so much is this book club, because it seems like for me, I don't touch books as often as I used to when I was younger.
Yeah.
So tell me about some of the books that you guys have read.
We recently read Viola Davis's autobiography. Wow. Talk about an inspirational woman. This is a woman who grew up in extreme poverty, who was sexually abused as a child, lived in horrible conditions, fought her way. People would tell her she wasn't pretty, she wasn't. So we all feel those like insecurities ourselves. You know, when people tell us you're not good enough, you're not beautiful enough, you're not thin enough. And she overcame all of that to be Oscar winning, Tony winning, Grammy winning actress. And it's just amazing. So we really enjoyed reading her book. And we did that. We wanted to pick books that would make us think, that would, lead to good discussions. And it's bringing all the girls at WFAA together, all the women. Yeah, we love it.
That's fun. How many folks do you have in your book club?
Oh, gosh, I think probably maybe 15 of us.
Oh, my
Yeah,
God.
and we get together for brunch and mimosas.
Well, hey,
And it turns into a whole, wonderful, afternoon
it's
of
not brunch
chit-chatting.
without mimosas,
Yeah,
right?
and we get to know things about each other that you wouldn't get a chance to know when we're rushing around the newsroom from one thing to the next. And we've really almost like a sisterhood now. In fact, Cynthia Isaguirre, our main anchor, just came up to me this week and said, I'm so glad you did that. She's like, I just feel like I'm closer now to the women in this newsroom because of this book club.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
Yeah, that's really cool.
I love that. Kudos to you for doing that.
Yeah.
I love it. Now, you mentioned your son. I have had the privilege of meeting your amazing son. Tell us all about him and some of the work that he's doing. Some other, you mentioned Chance the Rapper, that he's working with him. Tell us about him.
So Jacob is just a self-starter. You know, he used to work, start doing video with the Potter's House with Bishop T.D. Jakes, and then afterwards, like when he went off to college, he decided he was going to continue that. And that's what he majored in, and he made his own connections in Chicago. And like I said, now he works with Chance the Rapper. He works with PBS, and so he's traveled the world with them. He's been to Ghana, Dubai, Europe, Germany. I mean, you name it, Tel Aviv. He's just been everywhere, and he's also getting his own big contracts. So in fact, I've always wanted to go to Mackinac Island since I saw the movie Somewhere in Time. I know it's kind of cheesy, when I was in junior high school, and I just thought it was so beautiful. So I decided I was going to go. But I never had a chance. And Jacob's going to have a photo shoot there and invited me to come with him.
Oh, wow.
So we're going in a few weeks to one of my dream bucket list places.
You know, Rebecca, we have that in common, that we're single moms. And when anybody asks me, my greatest accomplishment is always my daughter. And that's where you and I connect. That it's like, no matter what I've done, that is the single greatest thing that I've accomplished. There is one thing about you that there's a lot of things I admire, but when someone mentions Jacob, have you ever noticed how your body language changes?
People tell me that all the time. I'm just so really proud of him. But not only because he's successful, he's just a good human being. He has got a sweet spirit, and he's not one of those like just, I'm going to climb my way to the top, you know, kind of nasty kind of folks. He's just a genuinely good-hearted person.
Well, that comes from good parenting. You know,
I hope so.
it comes from good. You can tell. I've been around him, and you can just feel that he's a sweet, genuine person.
He is.
And in a world of young people in all of their entitled ways, it is very refreshing to be around someone that's young and doesn't feel that life owes him anything, and that he's willing to work for it. So kudos to you, Mom.
He even told me the other day, because Mom, you don't even have to pay my rent anymore. Like, who does it at 22, you know, because, you know, I'm really proud of him.
You can tell.
He's making his own money and doing his own thing, and he's like, you shouldn't have to take care of me until my, you know, forever. You know, it's time for me to grow up.
Well, I love
admire that about him.
Well, kudos to you. Great job. So tell us, what are some of your hobbies? What do you do for fun, other than traveling?
Like I said, I love to travel. I love to read. Of course, I love a good girls' night out, as you and I have been out several times, you know, on girls' night out. I'm currently trying to also focus on writing a book. I'm also the president of the Hispanic Dallas DFW Hispanic Communicators. It's the affiliate of the National Association of Hispanic Journalists. So we're raising money for scholarships for kids and to go to college and go into media, and also raise awareness for young professionals who want to learn more about the trade. And so we're offering workshops, things like that. So I'm really proud of that work right now.
Oh,
yeah.
I didn't know that.
That's
you're always doing things like in the community, moving around. I see you everywhere. So how do you have time for all of this?
You know, I used to do even a lot more, but I decided I was just going to focus on some key things this year, and that was one of them, because I used to be, oh my gosh, I wore myself out. And sometimes you want to help as many people, and you want to do so much that you're just exhausted. So this year I decided I was going to slow down a little bit and take a little bit more time for myself and my family.
So this is you slowing down.
This is me slowing down. Well, I hate to be even. Tanya Iser, one of my coworkers, she's like, "Oh my God, we always get caught in Rebecca's vortex. She's a tornado, like spin around all the time." Oh my gosh, I did. I used to be even more energetic, but I'm getting older, so I'm prioritizing now.
Well, you cannot tell because you're everywhere. I mean, and it's so amazing to be able to balance all of that, to have a happy, productive son and a happy, productive husband,
Yes.
to be able to balance family and work and all the things. What are some tips you can give us for the work-life balance? Because obviously you do it well.
I think for me, it was, for many, many, many years, my focus was strictly my career. And it's hard because when I first walked into WFAA, it was pretty much a male dominated newsroom. And so as a Latina journalist, it was hard. So I focused and I spent so much time doing that I think I did sacrifice some things with family and friends and missed a lot of things. And then as I think maturity and wisdom, I guess when you get older you get more wisdom, and I just decided that it was important to equally spend time with my family and balance these other things in my life. But that's the key, is you just have to be balanced. You cannot spend so much time at work that you neglect the important things in life. And for me now, the important things in life is being around good friends and the people that I love. I spent a lot of time, I think, trying to please everybody and fit into a lot of circles that I didn't really fit in. And I did that, I think, because I wanted to be everywhere. I had to be everywhere. I had to get an invitation everywhere. And I think as I matured, I realized that, some of that was, not that it was wasted time. I met a lot of good people and I did a lot of good things, but it's prioritizing and also prioritizing those things that you feel comfortable with and at peace, and surrounding yourself with people that make you happy and don't bring turmoil or drama into your life.
So you said a mouthful right there. Personally, I go through those kinds of things, learning how to prioritize, right, with a career and a family and all the things. So I think that it is phenomenal that you've learned how to balance all of that, and it shows. You just seem so grounded. Every time I'm with you, you're grounded.
Look, I wasn't always like that. It was like, it was tough at times.
Yeah.
But I think, again, I just think as you get older, your priorities change. And I wish I had known some of this or learned some of this earlier, because I think I would have done it, a few things differently.
So you've mentioned several times your age, and one thing I love about us and our brown skin is that you do not look like. And so we were researching you, and learned that you've been doing this for 37 years.
Yeah, 37 years.
Girl, you do not look like.
Yeah, I'm going to be 59 in February. I know, I tell you.
So we probably need to pivot and talk about beauty secrets at this point.
Botox.
Well, it works. It's working. Whatever you're doing, it is working. So I was surprised to learn you've been in journalism 37 years.
37 years. I started in my hometown of Midland, Odessa. Then I went to Corpus Christi, and then I was in Austin, then Phoenix, and then Dallas now for 26, almost 27 years now.
Oh my God.
And I have just had, I feel, an extraordinary career in that I've met people, I've covered historical events, I've interviewed Oprah Winfrey, LeBron James, Cicely Tyson, Viola Davis. I actually met her. Serena Williams, Selena. I interviewed Selena the year before she died. So I've had the opportunity to be in the room with really phenomenal and great people. And I am so glad that I've had those opportunities, not just because it's name dropping, just because it is fascinating to hear their stories and how they got there, and to learn from greatness as well.
Yeah. So I've never told you this as a friend, but you have my childhood dream job. I used to want to be a journalist when I was younger. So what was it about journalism? Why did you want to be a journalist? So
I think I had a very idealistic view when I was a young girl, and I wanted to make changes, and I looked on television. I didn't see anybody like me on there. And I wanted to cover issues that impacted people that didn't have a voice. I wanted to do the stories of people in the more disenfranchised communities and those sort of things. And then I gravitated towards police work, but I've done a lot of stuff in criminal justice as well, bringing justice to people that felt like they were maybe not getting a fair shake in the justice system.
Yeah.
But I've also done a lot of stories on domestic violence. My mother was a domestic violence victim. And I recall that since I was a little girl, and I wanted to be a voice for those women. So one of my most proud awards, I don't do this for awards, but sometimes you get awards for things you do, was I got the National Edward R. Murrow along with a couple of my other coworkers, and that's one of the highest awards you can get in broadcast journalism on our coverage of domestic violence, on changing the way Dallas police responded to domestic violence victims, on trying to change the culture of how people saw domestic violence victims. And for me, that's probably one of the most proud things that I've done as a journalist.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Kudos to you.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I love
I'm
that
learning
stuff.
so much. We should have done this earlier. Oh, my gosh. Oh, my goodness. So I want to go back to if I could, the domestic violence. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And your mom being a survivor. So my mom, too, was a survivor of domestic violence. How has that impacted you're investigating those types of stories? How has it, if it has, changed your view of your mom's?
So I think that watching my mom was a warrior.
Yeah.
So my mother not only survived that, she had dropped out of high school to have 2 children as a teen mom, but then she went back and she got her GED. She got her master's degree. She became an assistant principal. She survived breast cancer not once but twice. She was a warrior. And then I watched, and she would just tell me all the time, Rebecca, you have to be able to stand on your own 2 feet. Rebecca, you have to do this because you don't count on anyone else to be there to carry you through life. You have to do this on your own. And if you find somebody that that pairs up with what you want and your same goals and dreams and that you click with, then that's wonderful if you find that life partner. But if not, you have to be able to stand on your feet. And my mom was so strong. And so I learned from her, and I learned to somewhat be a fighter and to fight for those, especially for women and children. Now, one of the stories that I'm doing right now involves the juvenile detention facility in Dallas and how that facility right now has a lot of issues. And our coverage eventually led to the resignation of one of the head of the juvenile detention board. And not that, we want to at all, hurt people, because that's not what we do in journalism, but we do have to hold people accountable.
Sure.
And so my mom taught me that. She taught me that strength. And unfortunately, my mom died. She was one of the first COVID deaths, and she died at on her 50th wedding anniversary on Thanksgiving morning of COVID. And so that too. That was hard. That was hard. And then my dad died a year later. But so there's been a lot of transition and turmoil in my life recently. But I am glad that she taught me how to survive and how to cope with those losses. Because I think it's her strength that helped me get through all of that.
Yeah, definitely. I know your mom has to be super proud of you and what you've accomplished in your life. And so
I hope so.
I know she is. I know she is. So as an investigative reporter, what is one of the hardest stories that you've had to investigate?
It's to me, it's not so much the investigations. For me, the hardest stories that I've had to cover have been like the mass shootings, Uvalde. I was in Uvalde within a couple days after the shootings. I have covered, unfortunately, so many mass shootings that I've lost count.
Oh, no.
And that is heart-wrenching. To me, Uvalde was probably the hardest story I've ever covered. And I've covered a lot of horrible things that people have done to each other because being the crime reporter. But Uvalde, when just the what happened with the children and the lack of response from police and investigating. And I was so frustrated when I started to learn how those officers just sat out there and didn't go in. And I just thought, it was so cowardly that they didn't go in and save those children when they had all that weaponry and all that. So it was, to me, one of the greatest failures in law enforcement. And that was, law enforcement, my husband's an ex-police officer. So I want to, before I get a lot of calls from police officers, I respect a lot of work that police do. We need police, and I know a lot of great officers and have a lot of respect. But what happened in Uvalde, most police officers will agree that was wrong.
Yeah.
And that was probably the toughest story that I've covered.
Yeah. Is
to see what happened there, and just what weapons do, like a AR-15 does. And again, not to get into controversial issues like gun violence or Second Amendment issues, but they slaughtered that guy slaughtered those little kids. And I think we as a nation, we have to figure out ways to stop this.
Yeah, agreed. I know that folks watching cannot feel how they can't feel this moment, but I can feel like your passion. I have chills all over me just because I can feel how passionate that you are about this story in particular, and it was.
Well, and also, on the night that the Dallas police officers were shot and killed, I was down there that night too, and I knew two of the officers that died, and one of them I had just spoken to the week before. So, officers also suffered, violence, and that was really hard because, again, I know a lot of police officers, and some of them, when you start covering a department, you become friends with them because they're your sources. You talk to them every day, and so that was heart-wrenching. That was really, really tough to see. Just the loss that day and how it transformed and changed the Dallas Police Department, which I think will never be the same after the loss of those officers. So that I think that was probably one of the first times that I really got emotional on the air. Like I said, I have covered a lot. I was at the space shuttle when it, exploded and came to the, from the parts were still falling to the ground when I got to Nacogdoches. I was in Waco when the compound burned to the ground and the little kids in there also died and all the people, the Branch Davidians. But for me, those two, DPD, the officers getting killed, and the DART officer, Brent Thompson, and the Uvalde were probably the toughest ones. Yeah.
So, believe it or not, you and I were in the same place at the same time, and we didn't know each other.
Wow!
So I was in Waco at that time.
Oh yeah.
So the way that it seemed to be reporting is that was in the heart of Waco. But
it was actually it's out. Yeah, we say Waco, but you're right. It's outside of Waco. Yeah, and people from Waco will definitely tell you that. It wasn't Waco.
So I lived in Waco at that time, and so I didn't know you at the time, and didn't know that you reported that story. So that's pretty cool to learn that. When we were doing research, I was like, wow, we were in the same place at the same time.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some of the other stories that you've covered. You get to cover You're so accomplished, and you get to cover some of the things that us ladies wish that we could cover.
Oh, like
some of these sports figures, and you get to be in locker rooms, and you get to see.
It's so interesting because some people know me from all the crime stuff that I've covered, and then I also co-host a show during Cowboy season, Dallas Cowboy show, where we take calls from people that are, have one thing to say about the game, one thing or another to say about the game. So I also co-host that show, and I cover the Cowboys. I've interviewed pretty much all of them: Dak, Emmett, Troy, all the greats. I consider a couple of them friends. I was at the World Series recently when the Rangers won the World Series. I was in Arizona. I covered the Stanley Cup when the Stars won the Stanley Cup. I covered the Mavs when they won their finals. I got to cover some of the playoffs, but I did not get to cover the Mavs in the finals because unfortunately I was credentialed, but I was in Greece on a trip, so I didn't get to cover the finals this time around. But it's a break from some of the heavy
Yeah.
stuff that
Yeah.
I cover. But I love sports, so I'm always trash talking about something or other. And that's why I guess my bosses are like, hey, we need to put you on this show so you can get up there and tell it from a woman's point of view. Because I think that some people, so I went to Odessa Permian, Mojo, Friday Night Football, Friday Night Lights, the movie. And that's where I got my love of football. And some people really think that women don't know some sports. I mean, they're still kind of like, sometimes people think that. And you're seeing a lot more, obviously, women that are great, that are, sportscasters and sports journalists. But I do get a chance to do that. It's kind of fun.
So I'm going to put you on the spot. I got to put you on the spot. So, football player, who's your favorite?
I'm torn sometimes between that because I know Emmitt Smith really well. And so Emmett's probably going to be one of my favorites, but I also have a lot of respect for my friend Tim Brown, who is a really good friend, he and his wife, Charisse. And I love, the reason that I really love Tim is because he is a wonderful husband, a great athlete, and a wonderful human being. And his wife and his children and his family. So, he'd have to rank up there with my favorites. But now, my favorite sports person of all, period, any sport, is Adrian Beltre. I love Adrian Beltre. Of course, he played third base for the Rangers. And I had a chance to interview him. And I very rarely now get starstruck because I've met so many celebrities and interviewed so many of them. But I was so nervous and scared interviewing Adrian Beltre. Really? I was like, oh my God, my heart was beating. Because I just love his grit, his personality, the way he just led that team. And I just love him as a sports athlete. And so I got to meet him, and that was really exciting. It was great.
Well, we love watching you on TV, and obviously you've accomplished so much. And so I read that you've got 9 Emmys.
Yeah, I think it's actually maybe 10 now.
You've got 10?
I think I've lost track of some.
Oh my gosh. That's awesome just to have lost track of how many awards you've received.
But let me tell you, I had been nominated 21 times before I won my first Emmy. Yeah, people used to make fun of Susan Lucci because she kept getting nominated for the daytime Emmys and she never won. That's the way I felt. I remember one time I was nominated 4 times for 4 awards, and I took my mom and I didn't win one. Oh, no. And I was like, so upset. But then the awards started coming, later. And so, a lot of Emmys. And
tell us about some of those awards.
Well, my first Emmy I won was for a story that I did on children in meth homes. These kids were, but people were running meth labs. Meth labs were really, really, really big back then. And they were cooking meth. And the kids were right there next to the meth. And they were suffering, health effects. I mean, meth is horrible for you because people were making meth from cat litter and all kinds of crazy stuff, volatile things that could have exploded their homes. In fact, some houses did explode. I covered a meth explosion. So that was my first Emmy that I won, was meth, the meth kids. And then the last Emmy that I won, I was really proud of, was the story on Santos Rodriguez, who was shot and killed, handcuffed in a Dallas police squad car 50 years ago when he was 12 years old. And we went back and we told his story, and so Santos wouldn't be forgotten. Oh, wow. And so we won an Emmy on that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
A lot of stuff that I've covered over the years. So much, I probably could write a book about it.
You probably should. You probably should. Well, we're going to take a very quick break, and we'll be back in just a second. We'll hear just a few words from our sponsors. Stick with us, and we'll see you back in a couple minutes. Welcome back. And today you've heard from the amazing Rebecca Lopez with WFAA News. Thank you again for being with us today, Miss Rebecca.
Thank you. You made it easy to talk to. You could take my job.
No, I could not. No, not on any given Sunday. You've made me nervous because we can freely kind of do this and we're never in front of a journalist.
Yeah.
But you're in front of a journalist. It makes things a little bit more difficult. So, but thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for your kindness. Thank you for sharing your story with us. We appreciate you. So we've heard from Rebecca Lopez, and that wraps up yet another episode of Strictly Business Unscripted. Don't forget, if you haven't done so in the past, like, share, and subscribe to this podcast. And until next time, have a great day.